Hey everybody, welcome to the Sports in the Mitten podcast powered by Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Adam Biggers, Michigan and Michigan State beat writer for FanRag Sports. I want to thank everyone for watching the YouTube live stream, everyone listening on iTunes and the FanRag Sports blog talk radio channel. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. Follow FanRag Sports at FanRag_U. Follow the podcast at Mitten Sports MI. Well, as you guys know, I want to center this on one topic. I mean, I'll field some questions. We talked to Jay Harbaugh and Mike Zordich today. I might save that one for tomorrow. Today, news of Keith Washington's transfer from Michigan broke. Sam Webb initially had that, and it's been widely reported now. I just actually got off the phone with Keith a few minutes ago, and there's a lot. It's easy to make a lot of assumptions about a reason why a guy transferred. It's easy to read stuff on Twitter, and I mean, I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've seen some purely, not only non-factual fiction, we'll call it fiction, right? Not only some just pure fiction, just some horrible, just horrible assumptions and basically BS. I mean, I'll call it as it is. It's just been a bunch of stuff. Muhammad, nobody's allowed to plug their Twitter on here but me, man. But if you want to follow Muhammad at MUALMALLI. Sorry, I tried to get it in there. Anyway, though, on a serious note, this is one part about college football that I don't like when you see a fan base who was once initially excited about a player, then all of a sudden he goes from trash. He did Haiti Live Radio. I don't understand he's transferring for 2.5 weeks. He did start the first 2.5 weeks of camp, and that's not just something that Keith said. That's something I've confirmed with a few people. So yes, he was right there. He was starting at cornerback. He was in the two deep at cornerback. He was moved to safety. Safety is a position he hadn't played since junior high. The position switch had nothing to do with his transfer. I know there's people out there speculating about that. Here's another thing about Keith. He was on track to graduate early from Michigan. There were no academic or off-the-field problems, no disciplinary problems. Keith and his family both expressed a great deal of gratitude to Jim Harbaugh, DJ Durkin, Tyrone Wheatley, who former running backs coach at Michigan. I'm trying to think who else here. Don Brown, Coach Mike Zordich. And basically how it went down was this past Saturday. Keith expressed to Jim Harbaugh, he went directly to Jim Harbaugh, told him that, that he was thinking about transferring. He had a meeting. He sat down with Don Brown, the defensive coordinator, and Mike Zordich, the cornerbacks coach, and they gave him time to make the decision. He told them that's what he wanted to do. They wanted to make sure that's what he wanted to do, so they gave him time. Keith thought about it for a couple days, went back and reaffirmed his decision. So it comes down to, and Keith told me, I mean, I know a lot of people, you can make it cut and dry. Is it about playing time? He was going to play. It's about just having the opportunity to play more. It's not like he wasn't going to see the field. Okay, we have some questions here. Muhammad Malik, I was hearing he was in line to get playing time this year. He looked good in the spring. He was. Muhammad, he was starting for 2.5, 3 weeks during fall camp. Where is he going? Mike Sobrowski wants to know. He does have interest. A lot of schools have called him. We had talked about that. Right now, I'm not going to talk about that until basically when it's time. So yeah, there are schools that are interested. Coaches have contacted him, but right now that's I'm gonna let. I mean, that's something that Keith and his family will probably reveal, but or maybe me when the time's right. I'm sure maybe I'll talk to them, but right now I'm not. We're not gonna speculate into that. Who steps up in a spot? Mike Sobrowski wants to know. For the love of no Big Ten schools, Boss 6268 and Boss. And actually, here's something that Keith actually really appreciates from Michigan, because they gave him a release to any school. Sometimes schools can put stipulations on it to where you can't transfer in conference. He can go to a Big Ten school if he wants. You can really blame a fan base for turning on a recruit who chooses to transfer. I'm sorry, I didn't see that comment. But anything that's any type of ignorant, emotional fan stuff, he wasn't good enough, that kind of stuff. I don't tolerate it with anything. I'd like to think that we have intelligent discussion here. I don't like to get into trolling. Yeah, sometimes we can have fun with discussions and kind of tongue in cheek, that kind of thing. But you can't trash a guy. Can't really blame. I mean, Elite Demon means nothing to for. Your comment went somewhere. I can't see it. I'm sorry. They're popping up really pulling up really fast. Boss 6268. God forbid he pulls a Boren. I don't know if he's going to Ohio. So he could go. He could go wherever he wants. We will continue to go heavy at DB in these recruiting classes. I'm sorry I didn't see the name. It does thin out the herd though, doesn't it? A little bit, especially when you look at a guy who's going into his third year. He was in the 2 deep. Again, he was starting for the first couple weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks. Casey Brown says, I don't think someone needs to take a spot. Probably wasn't a starter and he wants to start somewhere. Hope he can find somewhere where he could start. And Casey, I think that's the gist of it, right? I mean, I feel like you have two contingents of fans. And there's the overboard fan who feels like they know everything. And, oh, well, you guys, unless you talk to these guys and you get to know where they came from and that kind of thing, it's really hard to judge. So even if you watch the podcasts like this and read stuff, I mean, you can't even always go by that. I mean, you have to actually have conversations with these guys. And I could tell you, by all accounts, I've talked to Keith several times. I remember when he got back from Buenos Aires and in the Rome trip, he told me all about it, how he, got a new appreciation for soccer. He's been into soccer since he was a little kid, that kind of stuff. I mean, you get to know these guys and you get to know about their goals. And Keith Washington was a guy who was working his ass off. He was a guy who was well respected by teammates. Mike McRae even tweeted out earlier. Most of the people bashing him are the same one who would leave a job for just another 10 cents more. Haiti Live. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it comes down to, right? And how much gain are you going to get? Oh, well, this is a $15 an hour job. Well, this one's $16 an hour. It's an extra $40 per week. And I understand your logic there. A lot of the people who are bashing him were the same people who were excited about him being in the 2 deep. And, oh, there's an experienced guy, maybe he can help out. And here's a Elite Demon. I don't agree with anyone bashing anyone. It just comes down to he didn't want to compete. That's not true, Elite Demon. That's an assumption that you're making. I can tell you that that's a fact. And that's the thing. There's so much stuff. People are tweeting everything. I mean, Elite Demon, I appreciate you watch the show all the time, and I appreciate all your comments. But did you talk to Keith and his family? Have you talked to anybody at Michigan and asked about him? Because if the answer is no, then I don't really feel like you have much basis for that comment. So I mean, that's where I'm coming from on this. Yeah, he wants to go somewhere where he can play more. That's a fact. Haiti Live, Radio, Claremont. He has to sit out a year, right? Yes. Caleb Vance. True fans should support whatever is best for the player. TJ Bellware. This is the biggest Michigan transfer since Devin Asiasi. Why everyone leaving us? And again, I mean, and Devin Asiasi had a lot of promise too, right? And as soon as he was gone, I mean, I think his first catch was a touchdown last year. Everybody was going bonkers over him. As soon as he leaves, well, Devin Asiasi wasn't good enough to be here anyway. I don't get that logic, guys. And if that's your angle, that's not my angle. So don't expect a nice response if you want to come like that. We want to talk about logic. We want to talk about facts. We want to talk about, logic and facts. Not speculation, not what you heard from this guy on Twitter who says he knows a guy who coaches and tweets stuff after practice, because that's not true. But if you guys have any questions, I mean, it's not some big elaborate story. I think I've gone into it enough as far as what we did. We did talk about some other things, and when the time is right, I'll catch up with Keith again, and I'll write about it. But it's not something where there's, and we had off the record conversation. Trust me. And if there's a time, Dan, if you could, pop that one right up. I want to finish this thought real quick. We did have plenty of off-the-record conversation, and same goes with his family. If there was a time and a place where they were going to trash Michigan, that would have been it. There was nothing of the sort. Nothing. Casey Brown, Asiasi was a bigger loss, hard to replace that talent. Nothing against Keith, but he is much more replaceable. Muhammad Malik, I'm sorry I didn't see that comment. And I think Dan, was it? Dan, if you had that one, please pop it up again. That looked like a good question. It was a big blurb. And I think it was Brian Morris made a comment on Twitter. Somebody, Brian, if you're watching, I'm sorry if I have to get up closer to the screen to watch this because it's on my phone. I'm pretty low tech, as you guys have realized already. Adam J. Perlaki, attrition is part of being a big time program. Got to roll with it. That's well said. That happens everywhere, right? I mean, it happens at Alabama, and Alabama gets all these highly rated recruits all the time. I mean, it happens. Leet Demon. I'm sorry, I didn't see that one, Leet Demon. Yeah, I'm just cautioning you. Be careful with the speculation, because a little speculation then starts rolling, and then all of a sudden that becomes a thing, and people will go with it. I'm not mad that he chose to move on. Kids these days just drive me crazy with decommitting and transferring. It's college football. It's a business, right? And it's not like that football was the only thing. He was on track to graduate early. Again, I mentioned that earlier. I mean, Keith took his academics very seriously. He was all about being a student athlete. Everything about him, everything that I've heard, no trouble, nothing off the field, nothing. It has never been as prevalent as it is today. Adam Biggersley, yes, and I mean, and we could go into a whole debate about why that's a whole nother show. Hopefully, the 18 DBs all stay committed. Boss 6268 says. I mean, it's just part of. I do think that you could chalk it up as attrition, but at the same time, I do think it is kind of a loss for. I mean, we're already talking about. And guys, watch this video. I've been doing them just as one lately because the guy will come back to back. So instead of having to start up again, I just pause and then continue. With Jay Harbaugh today, and I have a piece coming up on the running backs, and that'll run tomorrow on FanRagSports.com at FanRag_U. And then Mike Zordich talked about the defensive backs, and Mike Zordich was basically, I mean, he was ripping in to the corners. He said they hadn't come along fast enough. Lavert Hill was really the only one that had impressed. Baller 205. Have you talked about Lavert Hill yet? You were right on time, Baller 205. According to Zordich, Lavert Hill is really the only one who had stood out at cornerback as far as being consistent. But Zordich did mention a bunch of other guys had been making, there were flashes from guys. David Long was a guy there were flashes from. I imagine there were flashes from Keith Washington. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been starting for 2.5, 3 weeks in camp. So, it's I do think, I mean, they lose some experience back there, and even if he was going to be in the safety rotation, they're still losing a little bit of experience there. I know Tyree Kinnell, or Kinnell, why do I keep saying Kinnell? It's Kinnell, Tyree Kinnell, and Brandon Watson. Brandon's a pretty experienced guy as well, but, it doesn't sound like Brandon. I mean, Jalen Kelly Powell's been talked about. I just think as a whole, losing experience in the secondary is kind of a big deal right now, even though it's one player. But this was already a position group that we were talking about that was going to be young and thin. And I'm sorry, Haiti Live Radio, I didn't see that last comment. If he has to sit a year, technically he isn't going to play more. I hope he does well. I don't know if this has been asked, but was Keith at practice Saturday while he was deciding? I don't know that. I didn't talk to him, Casey. All I know is about on Saturday, what he told me was that he went to Jim Harbaugh directly, spoke with Jim. They then spoke with Mike Zordich and Don Brown. They all sat down and had a meeting. And again, for those who are just joining us or didn't hear me earlier, they had a meeting. Keith told them, hey, this is what I'm thinking. They said, are you sure? Why don't you take some time to think about it? Keith thought about it, went back to them, reaffirmed his decision, and it was made. Kelly Jean on Twitter, at Calibration, if he winds up at Maryland, I'm going to be miffed at him. Well, he does have a relationship with DJ Durkin. Dan Cronk, any one of the freshman DBs you think we would redshirt, and if so, I didn't see some. Initially, Dan, I'm finding myself, I have to correct myself on this. I thought Ambry Thomas initially was going to be a guy, just because he's not, really big. I mentioned this in the last podcast. I thought compared to the other signees, 2017 signees, that Ambry looked closer to a high school football player. whereas the other guys had more of a college build. I thought that Ambry could benefit from a year in the weight program, but it sounds like he's playing really well. All things considered, think we hold off on redshirting him, Dan Cronk? No, I don't think. No, I don't think Ambry will get a redshirt now, because he's been mentioned in the return group. He's been mentioned with the defensive backs. I think Ambry and Mike Zordich. He was asked. I forgot who asked the question specifically. Will Ambry Thomas likely, see some decent playing time on the field? And he said yes. Any word on Chuck Filiaga? Leoism asks. No. Not specifically. Sean Patterson, does today's press conference with Mike Zordich have anything to do with this, or do you think he knew about this beforehand? Oh, yeah, he knew. He knew before. Yeah, Mike knew. He was told Saturday. But again, it's not, I don't think, the coaches are not going to say, well, this guy's going to transfer. That's on the player. That's on the player's family. That's his decision to make. But yeah, and here's the thing. After we were done speaking with Mike, and fantastic interview. Mike, they should give us Mike Zordich every day. I think it was Chris Ballas of the Wolverine made that joke to one of the SIDs, like, why don't we get Zordich every time? And I agree. Zordich, I asked him, hey, what prompted the move of Keith from cornerback to safety? And he told me, he said, his footwork has really improved, and he had good things to say about him. But it was now, looking back on it, I could tell that he wasn't going to tell. And I didn't ask him. I didn't even know. I didn't know about this until when I got home after Sam Webb tweeted it. Monster of Leon. Any talk about how well wide receivers? Oh, that one disappeared. Wide receivers so far, though, have been playing well. And, I mean, if you read into Mike Zordich's comments, I mean, they've been burning up the secondary, right? On a regular basis. Muhammad Malik. JD had a high school build for almost 3 years at Michigan, but he was a baller. I think AT will be the same for a while. That's a good point. That's a good point. Not all these guys are coming in, looking college, build-wise college ready, NFL ready. That is a good point. Does this transfer confirm David Long and Lavert Hill as the starters? Leoism wants to know. I would assume so. I would assume so. And I've always thought it was going to be David and Lavert, possibly Keith in the 2 deep. I didn't know that Keith had been starting all through camp. I wasn't aware of that until today. But I always put Keith in the consideration for the 2 deep, just based on what I had been hearing. But as far as him starting during camp, that was news. That was actually news to me today. Just a little while ago. If you guys follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81, I tweeted out basically while I was on the phone with him a bunch of quotes, and then again, earlier in the day I spoke with the family. So that was it is a surprise. It is a surprise, and Keith says, like I mentioned earlier, he said he loves Michigan. A lot of respect for Coach Harbaugh. Had a great time. Really considers a lot of these guys brothers. Really close to a lot of guys. Andrew Pearson Thompson. I was thinking Keith was second cornerback and David Long is nickel or vice versa. Robert Prossman. Who's going to be the third corner? I don't know. Robert Ambry. Maybe. I mean, Ben St. Just had been mentioned very briefly, but I don't think Ben's in that 2 deep discussion. I think that he's a guy who's shown some flashes, according to Mike Zordich. So, and again, guys, I'll be writing on that this week. I'll be writing a column, but if you want to check out the interview, it's basically halfway. Just put the little, drag it halfway, and boom, you'll see Zordich, and he is animated. He was talking about maybe the solar eclipse. Anybody out there watch the solar eclipse? I was driving home from Ann Arbor during that. He thought, maybe the solar eclipse will change stuff. He was very. There's 2 ways to take it, and I think it's motivation either way. But I think that he wasn't overstating that these guys just haven't been consistent, because a lot of people have been hearing that. So that's not a surprise to me. But I was kind of surprised at the level that he went to as far as, and I'll use the word criticizing. I mean, he was critical but I don't think it was unjust. I don't think he wasn't going out of his way. I think a lot of it was on the motivational side, but at the same time, frustration on the part of a coach when he knows that he's got a talent group that is talented enough to do things. He said he's seen it. They just have to go out and grab it, and that's the problem. You know, are they hungry enough as a group? So, and you know, it does perplex me a little bit. Like, how does a guy go from starting 3 weeks and then I mean, there. Any other transfers coming? Possibly Nate Johnson cracking top 4 wide receivers. I did not see. I've heard Nate mentioned a little bit, but I don't think he'll be in the top 4. No. And again, this is part of, this is just part of college football, right? I mean, we see transfers every year from every team. Leoism, okay, that was a one. Andrew Pearson Thompson, do you think either Ambry or St. Juice redshirt now? Maybe St. Juice. I don't think it's Ambry any longer. No. And again, I think, you know, when I was kind of predicting during the summer, Ambry was one of those guys that I did put kind of probably more in the 50-50. I also put Dorian Irving-Bay in that category. It sounds like he's still from Flint competing for 2 deep. Danny William H. No, and yeah, because like you said, Nate may be a return man. I think Ambry's going to return kicks. I mean, there's Kakoa's been back there, DPJ's been back there, Chris Evans has been back there, Khalil Hudson's been back there, and that's a guy who I've felt. I hadn't heard anything about it until today, but just based on athleticism alone, that's a guy who I felt would probably get a crack back there, and he has. Ambry's been back there. I think Nate Johnson has been converted to safety, Jared Hall says. I haven't heard. And speaking of wide receiver converted to safety, Brad Hawkins, Mike Zordich said Brad Hawkins has a chance to be pretty good. Flint boys, don't count us out, Muhammad Malik. Muhammad, you're from Flint. Yeah, don't ever. And I think I mentioned that. Don't ever count on a Flint guy. It's just, it's a Flint thing. I also think Ambry should get a look for returns, Mitchell Benzing says. Yes, Mitchell, that is happening. Muhammad, where'd you go to high school? I talked about this the other night with a DeMario. He went to Atherton. Don't drink the water in Flint, Larry Brown. Clever. I've always drank bottled water. Come on, man. You got to come with a better joke than that. Flint Central 06. Okay, so you were there 09 when it closed down. I remember when Demetrius Miller, you probably know him, when he played at Mott. He was on the 2011 National runner-up team, junior college, NJCAA, Mott Bears. Michi was up there. I actually had a guy on my summer team, the Flint Wolves, Darnell Jones. I don't know if you knew Darnell. Darnell can hit. He hit some triples for us. He's out in Arizona trying out there. I'm sorry, I didn't see that one. Something about LOL, Adam. I mean, if you're talking about the Flint water joke, I mean, come on, that Lead Demon, LOL, Adam Biggers, you crack me up, bro. I'm sorry. Drake Harris update, Leoism. I mean, he's cornerback. I haven't really heard anything. Muhammad Malik, leave, Larry. Yeah, it's not funny. I mean, I'll say this too. If you want to talk about the Flint water thing, I live in 503. Which is the worst zip code according to the little maps that they produce. Luckily, my house did not have high lead. The test came back clear. There's an elementary school, though, in my neighborhood that had high levels of water. So it's not a laughing matter, Larry, when you think of like all the kids who drank that. So come on. I mean, you may have been joking, haha, but come on. Lead Demon, I agree it's not fun. It would be a Buckeye troll to come in and try to troll us. James Hudson, Andrew Stuber updates. A lot of hype for these guys coming in. Haven't heard much. Leoism, James Hudson, defensive tackle, maybe offensive tackle. I've heard that James might be flipped to offensive line. Any other questions, guys? We're going on 25 minutes. Again, I'm sorry, it's kind of a late one. I'm scrubbing it right now. Next time, maybe I'll shave. I'll try to be halfway presentable. But I figured, with the news of Keith Washington, I know everybody's talking about that, so I figured I would sit here and talk about it for a little bit. Drake is firmly where I didn't see that. Alex Malzone transfer. No, Alex is there. Leoism. Jared Hall, I asked the other day. So Iluzio's getting some pub this week. Starter, rising star. Nolan Iluzio. Tim Drevno's talked about Nolan as in that mix at the right tackle position. Who's the third safety? AJ 2100 wants to know it. I don't know, AJ. Ambry, I think, is Ambry or third safety. Maybe Jalen Kelly Powell. I don't know. It's hard to determine right now. Brandon Watson, Josh Metellus are also in there. I'm guessing it's gonna be Tyree, and then Josh or Brandon, and then I guess take your pick. For fourth with Jalen Kelly Powell. We've heard Jalen mention he is getting work at safety. He's worked at both safety and corner. Jordan Glasgow, Andrew Pearson Thompson. Jordan's also in there. Third safety was supposed to be Washington, now KJP or Hawkins, says Danny William H. We'll see. Brad Hawkins was mentioned. Glasgow backup Viper. He is a backup Viper. But that's interchangeable. Viper. They're going to play safeties too. He'll play. Has Evans or Higdon solidified RB number 1? I believe Chris Evans is the top running back. Karan Higdon, though, Jay Harbaugh, I asked Jay today, where has Karan improved the most? And he just said, shoot, man, just everywhere. Or just everything, something like that. What's going on with Josh Uche? Boss 6268. Uche, right? And the linebacker, I mean, we haven't heard a lot about Josh. I talked to him over the summer at a youth camp. He and Josh Metellus and Devin Gill, Devin Bush. Haven't really heard a lot about Josh Uche, other than the pass rush stuff that I've talked about. What Don Brown was talking about after the Orange Bowl, saying that he was one of the up-and-coming. You're all right, Base. I knew what you meant. Which freshman linebacker sees the field? Muhammad Malik. Hey, Muhammad, you didn't answer my question. Do you know Darnell Jones or not? He's got a hell of a left-handed bat. Freshman linebackers see the field. Well, special teams. I think Josh Ross is going to see the field. I think Yeehaw Nerd. Brandon Peters update. Really? Hold on, let me get back to this freshman linebacker question. I think Josh Ross will play. I think Jordan Anthony and Drew Singleton will also play. They'll get some time special teams. Brandon Peters update is Brandon is not starting. It's Wilton and then John O'Corn and then Brandon's third in that third position. Okay, I don't really have any other questions on Twitter, guys. If you guys have a couple more, we're going on 28 minutes. Appreciate everybody for watching again on the live stream on YouTube or on Blog Talk Radio on the FanRag Sports channel. Do you think Ty Isaac could end up being running back number 2 ahead of Higdon? Omari Samuels, Kurt Taylor looked. Omari, Kurt need time to learn. Leet Demon. Do I think Ty Isaac could be number 2? Maybe. By everything we've heard, Ty's just slimmed down. He's gotten quicker. He's more agile. I wrote about this actually. I have the piece coming up tomorrow, so be sure to read that. Sorry guys, I didn't see those. Jeremy Case, quick recap on Keith. You missed it. Oh man, I just said I talked about Keith for 20 minutes. Leet Demon, nice. We'll read it. I read all your articles. I appreciate it, Leet Demon. Long story short, I'll recap it for you since you just joined. Keith, I know people are saying that the sole reason why he transferred was to place because they moved him to safety. That's not the case. He started for 2.5, 3 weeks during camp. He's on track to graduate early. No off-field issues, no academic issues, no internal issues. Well respected by teammates. Went to Jim Harbaugh on Saturday, said that he was thinking of transferring. He wanted to transfer. He then had a meeting with Mike Zordich and Don Brown. And Adam, do you travel to scout high school games on Fridays? No, I don't, Mitchell. So I'll sometimes go to a high school game around here because I have some friends who coach. But Eric Doyle at Lake Fenton, if you're watching, they have really good hamburgers at Lake Fenton. That's why I go. But no, Lake Fenton's quality program. Eric does a hell of a job out there. I'll probably be going to Bentley, Andre Weathers. former Michigan defensive back. He was running corner with Charles Woodson. He was in that same secondary, 97 National Co-Championship team. I love Andre. He's a good dude. So I'll probably go out there, check him out, see how much. Maybe they'll let me be a pest, get on the field, sidelines and stuff. But back to Keith. You know, you got to be careful with all the stuff that you see on Twitter, what you read, what you hear. Any word on O-line progress? Leet Demon wants to know. I mean, nothing recently that we haven't already talked about. But back to one final thing. If you want to go back, I tweeted a bunch of quotes from Keith. So at AdamBiggers81, that's my Twitter. Just scroll through there and you can find all of it. Or just rewatch this episode when it's done. And yes, Andre Weathers, Muhammad Malik. You know where he went to high school. With Fred Jackson Jr., former Fred's dad was the running backs coach at Michigan for like 22 years, 20 plus years. He was your coach. Muhammad Malik, Andre was your coach? Hell yeah. I love Andre. I'm surprised that Harbaugh will allow Zordich to call his position group like he did. Thoughts on that? Sean Patterson. They needed it. According to Zordich, they needed it. He even said he hopes they read the articles. Watch that interview on my YouTube channel, guys. Mike Zordich pulled no punches. I like his honesty. Good questions at Cameron Clark. What happened to Shelton to Johnson? Yeah, Leoism. I didn't see that one, Cameron. Haven't heard anything about Shelton. That's a guy that I haven't heard a lot about. I haven't heard, you know, about Reuben Jones, really. Any other questions, guys? We have a lot of live viewers this time. This might be an all-time high, so I appreciate it. Should we end it? It's 10:46. It's getting almost past my bedtime. I have to be down to Michigan tomorrow. We'll have player availability. What is Reuben Jones' number? I don't know, Muhammad. I do not know right now. Leet Demon, can't think of any new questions. Cameron Clark, I don't think he's playing football. Who? And of course, I mean, he was on the roster last year. Yeah, Reuben, yep, number 4. Good call, Marcel Woods. Cameron Clark, number 4. Yep, good call, guys. He's on last year's roster. Shelton Johnson. He was on last, yeah. Poggi starting at fullback. Well, I mean, I think it's Khalid. I think it depends on the package, but I mean, it's going to be Khalid and Henry. Ben Mason will get playing time this year. Jay Harbaugh has said that. Jared Hall says no Hill. Yeah, Khalid Hill. That boy lid. What is it? That boy lid _80. I got a question the other day about who are my best guys to interview. I didn't mention Khalid. Khalid's a really good interview. There's a lot of good interviews. I heard Ben Mason was a really good interview. Ruben is number 4. Mitchell Benzing. Thanks, guys. I can't wait to watch Mason and see this physicalness, Leet Demon says. Jay said the same thing as Dad said. Ben Mason is born to play. Fullback. Will Michigan beat Penn State or Ohio? Marcel Woods wants to know. I don't know. I don't think so. I think Penn State's a pretty tough game at Penn State. And I mean, they've beaten Ohio State 3 times since I've graduated high school. So, do the math there. Until something changes. I mean, last year they had the opportunity, but I think last year, again, and I've said this a few times, they had the team, they had the schedule, they had the experience. This year is a little bit different. But with it being in Ann Arbor, and I mean, it's close. Of course, it's months away. But if you ask me right now, do I think Michigan beats Ohio State? No. And Penn State? No. Either one of them? No. Caesar or Kugler? Kugler could be a leader. Patrick was going to be the starting center. Something about, I came late. Why did Washington leave? Cameron. Oh. All right, Cameron. You're a regular. I'll go through it again. He left because basically he wants an opportunity to play more. It's not that he wasn't going to play. He wants to go somewhere where he could, and I quote what he told me, showcase his skills. He wants to play more.
I believe Michigan can beat Penn State, says Elite Demon. Just make it an hour, Adam. Jared Hall. It's 35 minutes. It's 10:49. It's almost past my bedtime. I'm old. I need my beauty rest. Penn State is overhyped. Robert, well, I mean, what? Penn State's number 6 in the coaches poll. Michigan's number 11. Is Michigan overhyped? Sean Holtz, here a little late. Who do you think will grab another cornerback? Levert seems to be a lock, thinking Watson is the other. I think it's David Long. It sounds like maybe Brandon Watson. Yeah, but you saw what happened last year versus Penn State. That was not the same Penn State team that won 8 games in a row, went to the Rose Bowl, barely lost to USC. That was a shootout. Came back. I covered the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin. Wisconsin had that game locked at halftime. I thought Penn State's a good team. Do you have any idea where Washington wants to go, Marcel Woods? I've talked about it with him, and when the time's right, when this is his, it's his process, whatever. He didn't specifically give me a list of schools, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend. But I know that some schools that are potentially interested, and he did kind of semi-confirm maybe. So that's as far as I'm going to go. But I'm not going to float out a name of a school. I will say that there's no stipulations to his transfer. His release, he can go anywhere. Andrew Pearson Thompson, thinking out loud. If Michigan beats Florida by 2 to 3 touchdowns, do you think they schedule us in the future? Well, I don't know, because what did Jim McElwain say? They're going to beat the heck out of Michigan. I think if Michigan puts a nice win on them, then maybe you think twice about it. I don't know. Or maybe you want to schedule them again because you are a glutton for punishment, or you want your chance to beat them. I don't know. I don't know, guys. That's hard to say. I'll ask Jim McElwain that after the game. How's that? If Michigan wins by 2 or 3 touchdowns, Elite Demon, I will specifically ask Jim McElwain that question for you. Does that work? Going on 38 minutes, guys. Is that an NCAA? Oh, I got a Twitter question. Keith Washington has to immediately leave Michigan after announcing transfer. I tweeted that. Raj Lakra at Raj. RAJLAKRA. Follow Raj. Is that an NCAA rule? Once the forfeiture of the scholarship takes place, then you have to leave. So yes, I believe it is a hard and fast NCAA rule. Their coach is an idiot that makes love with sharks. Cameron Clark. That is a convincing picture. If that's not Jim McElwain humping a shark, then who is it? Come on. Very good Photoshop. Has that photo been debunked yet? Does anybody know? I'll Google it before I go to bed. That thing can't be real. It sure does look like him, Lee. It does look like him. Jared Hall, what time are you interviewing at Michigan tomorrow? I can't say, Jared. They don't like us releasing the times or letting us know the players who are available. I'm sorry. Cameron Clark, looked real to me. It does. Muhammad Malik, Sharks need love too, Craig. They do. But you'll know, Jared. I'll go live on my YouTube. I'll tell you it's at night. That's all I can tell you. It's at night. It won't be earlier in the day. Hopefully you guys get Lavert Hill. Sean Patterson says. After camp, guys, is when we'll probably be able to request more players. Muhammad Malik. 11-1, or are you predicting Michigan's record? Because I don't think so. I think 10 wins is probably top for these guys if they get some bounces. I think 8 or 9, 9-3 sounds pretty fair to me. Muhammad Malik says yes, he is predicting 11-1. That is a bold prediction. Either way, I will watch your stuff, Adam. Sean Patterson says I appreciate it, Sean. Like I said the other day, I've noticed a really good regular crowd in here, guys. Really good questions. I appreciate them all. Let's do 2 more questions. It's 10:54 where I am.
We'll go to 11 o'clock. 4 more minutes.
Something about all the hype Harbaugh gives Ben Mason. Yeah, he does. He hypes the hell out of him. And I think it's, do you think the offensive line can produce a 1,000-yard back? Marcel Woods wants to know. Yeah, I think Chris Evans. If you look at what Chris did last year, and half the carries, I did the math too. It was about half the carries that Davion had, and he had 30% fewer yards. He averaged 7 yards per carry, finished with like 614 net yards. I do believe that Chris has the opportunity to be a 1,000-yard rusher. I do. Do you think secondary will get it go before Florida?
No. Not according to Mike Zordich. It sounds like secondary's got a lot of work to do.
Jason Allen, question about Wilton. I see you liked something. His receivers made him look good last year. I don't know. I think Wilton made his receivers look good last year too. Are we gonna talk about Wilton Spate? Do you want to talk about Wilton Spate?
We're gonna enter down that. Why would they go with a guy who is not battle tested? Jim Harbaugh. You guys, if you've listened to all the stuff that Jim Harbaugh has said about Wilton Spate, and he's saying stuff. Okay, listen to him talk about Ben Mason, high praise, right? He doesn't just say that about every single player. Last year, he said that Wilton had Heisman-like qualities. He doesn't get rattled. He's got the right attitude. Jim Harbaugh said everything about Wilton Spate as a quarterback that I feel like any fan base would want to hear about their quarterback. He's on the Maxwell preseason watch list. I know in some cases it matters to some people in some arguments, in other cases it doesn't. But I mean, I could rattle through the stats for you. Wilton is the clear quarterback and has been. People act like Wilton was bad. Stats don't lie, says Sean Holtz. 61.6% completion percentage. Anybody know who had the higher completion percentage? There was only one guy in the Big Ten last year. I've mentioned it on the show before. And this will be a practice trivia question for when I give away free Mr. Spots during the season. It'll be questions like this. Who had the highest complete, and don't look it up. Who had the highest late throws? His offensive line wasn't always... I don't think you could... I think Michigan fans like to blame Wilton Spate for too much. He wasn't perfect, but Wilton Spate didn't cost the Wolverines 3 losses. Indiana quarterback, no, good guess. Northwestern quarterback, no, good guess. It was Hills from Maryland, 61.9%. And he threw 134 fewer passes than Wilton.
Jonathan Crane, Hills, you're right. I think O'Corn has to play. I didn't see that one, Marcel.
But yeah, with Wilton Spate, the numbers are just there.
They just are. Maryland, yes, Muhammad. I know.
Yes, Maryland. Maryland has good receivers.
Did Maryland even score against Michigan?
I don't remember the score of that game last year. Let me look it up. We're going to end it on that, guys. And Maryland's, what's DJ Moore? One of the best. DJ Moore, I mean, if you have a receiver like that, who's got the score? Someone's got it. I don't remember every single score from every game. I know it was a blow. Well, it's like 59-3, wasn't it?
Anybody got the... I saw some... I think you guys put them up. Was it... It was 59-3. Cameron Clark. It was... Yes. That's what I thought. I knew it was... I mean, I knew it was just...
an ass kicking of epic proportions. I guess when it gets a little bit later at night, I get a little bit freer with the mouth, so I'm sorry if I offend anybody with my... I'm trying not to swear. I get a little into it. I might let a couple 4-letter words fly every now and then. All right, guys. 10:58. No more questions. No more questions about Spate. No more questions. Any final questions about Keith Washington? I'll preview what I'll talk about tomorrow, guys. Running backs. Talk more about the defensive backs. So if you have questions, as always, tweet them at me, at AdamBiggers81. I try to answer all of them. From Twitter, I try to, answer, read you guys' handles by name and stuff. Okay. Well, I'm just going to final plugs of the show.
Mom, and thanks, Adam. Hey, guys, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Yep. Tomorrow, I don't know what time tomorrow. Probably at night.
It'll be at night. I'm guessing around maybe this time, which gives you a hint at what time availability is. Right? But yeah, thanks again. I want to thank Tim and Keith at Mr. Spots. I'll be giving away some free food from there. Trivia questions, guys. So if you're in Ann Arbor on game day and you're a winner, just go in there, tell them you listen to Sports and Mitten podcast, and you want free food from me, and they will hook you up. I was there today with Matt Pargoff of Maize and Blue News. He and I chowed down on a couple steak sandwiches and talked with Tim and Keith a little bit, and had a good time. And I drank like 3 cups of lemonade. And yeah, other than that, follow the podcast at Mitten Sports MI. Search us on Facebook at Sports in the Mitten. And again, follow me on Twitter at AdamBiggers81. FanRag Sports at FanRag_U. Hey guys, thanks for all your questions tonight. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you next time.